Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with another podcast this week about life in Spain, joined again by John, who's just come back from a trip to Serbia, I believe, John.
Yes, I have, yeah.
And how was that?
A long trip, but it was very fulfilling. It was worthwhile, very interesting trip. It was the second time I've been there, second year running. And yeah, it was something I want to do every year.
You were there for cricket, I believe.
Yeah, every year we run a cricket tournament in La Manga to raise money for the club and for charity. And the last 2 years we've been raising money to buy equipment for the refugees in the refugee camps in Serbia. So we raise the money, we buy equipment, and it actually works out cheaper for us to take the equipment on by playing ourselves and do some cricket sessions in Serbia with the guys, and it is to actually just transport it over and not have the guarantee that it's going to arrive as well. So we've been doing that for 2 years now, and that's what we did this last week.
So when you say refugees, did you say?
Yes.
Where are they from?
The majority of the refugees were from Afghanistan, but there were also some from Pakistan.
Okay.
Last year, there were also a couple from Somalia, Syria as well. But I think this year I only remember talking to Afghanis and a couple of Pakistanis this year. But most of them were from Afghanistan.
Okay. And they play cricket?
Yeah, huge cricket fans. Their faces just lit up as soon as we walked in the camp. They saw all the cricket equipment that we brought over for them. We had a great couple of sessions, and we even did a mini tournament as well. So it was
fantastic, great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I'll just apologise again for the jackhammers if they do creep into the sound here of the podcast. They're back again. Well, they haven't gone away. They've been working on the streets here for about 3 weeks now, and they've just finally decided to do the street here. So I'm sure that there will be a little bit of a jackhammer noise interference coming in, but we'll try not to let that get in the way.
You need to give them biscuits, mate. Give them biscuits.
I heard that you said that before. Yeah, that was an interesting theory. I'll try that out. The street's not very long, so maybe if I give them a couple of biscuits, they might get it done in a couple of days. I do not know. Now, we'll go through some of the questions that we get here on a regular basis. The last podcast, there were a few questions. I saw that you did answer a couple.
Yeah.
One of them was from Leo Javaman again. He wrote a couple of comments a few weeks ago and another one the other day. I didn't look at all of the comments, but there was one in particular that caught my attention. And it was about youth unemployment in Spain. Many people cannot find unemployment after graduating college, but even though they can easily move to another EU country and work anywhere in the EU, very few take this opportunity. And he wants to know why more people don't go and live in other countries. And I saw that you replied, just in case you don't remember exactly what you said, in this order. A lot of people have already left. The ones that stay don't want to leave their family and friends, obviously. The language issue, a barrier, of course. They don't have any desire to emigrate. And the last one is comfort. They're happy to stay with their parents in the comfort of the family home. Now, that's actually a point that I just want to pick up on here about this topic, and it is that that very late age that Spanish people seem to emancipate from their parents or move from the family home. I've met people that are living with their parents up until the age of 35 and 36, sometimes quite comfortably, with no intention of leaving. No,
it's quite amazing, actually. I was... it's one of the first things I noticed about Spain and the difference between Spain and the UK when I first arrived here. Came to visit my wife's family, girlfriend at the time, in 1999, I think it was. We came over, had a couple of weeks here and met her friends, and I was 23 at the time. She was 22, and met all her friends. It was like about 30 of them all in this park, all having a drink and
in the park,
botellón, having a few pipas and stuff, and some playing the bongos and stuff.
Typical thing that you see here. That's right.
Yeah, typical thing, just on a Saturday night. And got talking to some of them, and it just amazed me because I was like, hold on, all these guys are 22. Not one of them had left home. And
22.
So
that's relatively young.
I was shocked then, because I was like, well, I can imagine a lot of them still being with their parents, especially if they're still studying, but none of them had left home. And I was out the door like 19 years old. I shot out the door. I love my mum and dad to bits and stuff, but I wanted my independence. I wanted to be out, in my own place. And when you got talking to them, well, you find out a little bit more information. The degrees, university degrees here tend to take a lot longer to do compared to back home.
Well, they used to be. That's one of the things that I saw as well. It used to be a fairly standard thing to do a 5-year university degree.
5, 6.
Whereas back home, or the one that I did was 3 years.
Yeah, that's typical in England. It's 3 years, maybe 4 for
4 years if you wanted to do honours.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to do a master's on top, if you want to do like a master's degree on top, that was about 6 years. But here, the standard seemed to be 5 years back in the day. I think that's changed. I know it's about 4 years. They've come into line with other European countries, I think. But 5 years used to be the standard.
Yeah.
So they were finishing university later, obviously. So starting at 17, 18, finishing at 22, 23.
Yeah.
But no will to leave. They were...
Yeah, but I think there's also another point to it as well. Is I think in the actual way they do the university degrees over here is slightly different as well. So I think you actually have more subjects than what you would specifically do in a degree in the UK, at least. It's more specified.
You have more contact time.
Yeah.
So you find that people go to university from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon and have classes for that whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I said, again, when I went to university, we had maybe on Monday 3 hours, Tuesday 3 hours, Wednesday we didn't have anything, Thursday 3 hours, maybe Friday we had an hour and a half, and that was it.
Yeah. And then you
study at home.
You're expected to study at home.
Yeah, and you get a job as well.
University. You expected to work a bit because you needed to keep yourself afloat as well. But apparently here, I was talking to someone just this weekend about it, and apparently that if you don't pass some of the content of the degree during the first couple of years, you have to repeat it. So that adds another year on, and it sort of drags on. So a lot of people, it's not unusual to find people at 26, 27 years old still doing their basic degree.
Yeah.
So obviously that makes everything a lot longer, and they're staying with their parents for a lot longer period of time. They get comfortable in their parents' house as well. Of
course, yeah.
No, most of them aren't working.
It's like a hotel.
Yeah, and most of them don't work either. So I think it's one of the things that concerns me at the moment with having children is I had a lot of life experience by getting a part-time job when I was 15. When I was in university.
A paper round or something.
Paper round when I was 13 till I was 15. Supermarket from when I was 15 till I was 18. And that's basically paid my own bits and pieces. But here it's not easy to do that. It's not as easy to get jobs like that in Spain. And I find that a shame because I think it's a big learning curve, and it gives you responsibility. It makes you learn what responsibility you need to have a job. You've got to get up. You've got to be there at the right time.
Responsibility.
The responsibility is really important.
So financial responsibility as well. Yes, to help start that independence or that emancipation, as I said before, from the family nest. I've known people that were doing their degree until they were 32, 33.
Yeah. I know some of my friends here they were doing that while I'd been working in the same company for like 7 or 8 years, and they were still studying.
Yeah. So it is. It's completely different in that sense, and I think there's also it's fairly. My parents are not Spanish, but I've seen that Spanish parents really love to have their kids close as well.
Yeah.
They love to make meals for their kids. They love to still make the bed in the morning, and they really love to go out of their way for kids.
Definitely. So it's a really family orientated culture. It's a one thing I do love about Spain. It's great. The families stick together. They see each other a lot, very regularly. But it does hold the kids back, I think, in some ways, and this is one of the ways. It just gives the children, the youth, too much comfort. And And the other problem is because they've got this comfort, when they do actually have their degree and they start looking for jobs, if they don't find the specific job that they're after, they just wait and they keep looking for that specific job.
Yeah.
Where I was in the UK, well, if I couldn't find what I wanted to when you first left education, well, you just grab the first thing you can find just to start earning some money while you carry on looking for your dream job. And they don't seem to do that here. They just want their dream job right from the beginning, and they don't tend to go out and just get anything they can get hold of.
Well, the idea is that if they study biology, they're a biologist, and that's all. There's nothing else they can do.
No, can't work in a supermarket to get a bit of money or anything.
Not even that, but a lot of people can't even go into any other type of profession because they've only trained to do the one thing. I mean, I'm just generalising there, but I have seen people say that. People have said, I said, what are you working? No, I'm unemployed. What are you? What did you do? I'm a biologist. Well, yeah, but if you're not working, theoretically, I mean, you might have trained to be a biologist, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are one unless you're working in that particular field. You know what I mean? You can go on and do different things. I remember at a wedding a few years ago, an English guy's wedding, there were a lot of people there from the UK. And everybody seemed to be working in the city in insurance companies and doing different things. And I asked a couple of them, I said, what did you study at university? And, a lot of people studied things that weren't related to finance, but they were working in the city because that's where the money was, you know. So what they studied for had nothing to do with the career that they had chosen to take.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing happened to me. I mean, I studied geography, English literature, and economics, and I'm teaching English. So obviously the English literature helps, but
it's related a little.
Yeah, is it related a bit? Yeah, well, I'm not writing books or anything. No. So yeah, it's really it's very common to find people that are doing one job but they've studied something completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more common, I would say.
Yeah,
it's very rigid here as well, and the family structures actually it's quite interesting. I remember seeing or listening to an economist. I think he won a Nobel Prize back in the day. A person called Joseph Stiglitz, and he said that a characteristic of the Southern European countries was that the families in times of crisis and economic crisis, particularly. I mean, Spain's fairly prone to it, as we have mentioned before. Job market's not very good. The families take up a lot of the slack.
Yeah, definitely.
So when somebody loses their job, even at the age of 45, it was common here in some provinces that the whole families would, move in together, and you'd have, 3 generations of the same family living together. So the burden's taken off the state. And he said that that's one of the things. The state doesn't spend the money that it should on those basic services because they rely heavily on the families. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an awful lot of experience on that side of things. I think being in Madrid, it's a little bit different maybe to more rural parts and smaller towns in Spain, but definitely seen occasions where people have lost their jobs in Rivas and in Madrid, and they've moved back with their parents for a couple of years. It's very normal, and on top of that, it's very normal to find older people, retired, needing extra care, moving back with their children in their latter years of life. That's very, very normal here in Spain. But that's not just because of economic reasons. It's because the family wants to look after their parents, their grandparents, rather than put them in a home.
Well, this economist said the economist said that the government doesn't offer the necessary services or doesn't put the money towards these things that they should be doing compared to other OECD countries, because they know that the family's going to pick up that.
Yeah, it could be a case. I don't really know an awful lot. It does make sense.
He seemed to think that it was all related. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't know whether it's true or not, but I haven't been in that situation yet. But I do know that my girlfriend's grandmother, they had a lot of trouble getting her into care, state care, for example, just because it was just so hard to.
It does seem to be a problem here, actually. I've seen quite a few posts on the local Facebook page where they've been asking and demanding for another residency for older people. Sorry, but I don't know how far that actually goes. There's been a lot of talk about it, and a lot of people that just can't get their grandparents or their parents into homes and they need it. and they end up going back to their own homes and being looked after by someone just coming in every day, cooking for them, cleaning for them, or family. Yeah.
All right, good. Now we'll move on. Comment here from Sounds Strange. He said he's an Irish immigrant. The term expat is silly at best and highly suspicious at worst, who has lived in Spain for the past 8 years. For any potential families thinking of moving to Spain, I think it would only be fair to discuss the education system here. And in my experience, and according to all the statistics, I've seen it's awful. All right, good, awful. John, now you have kids in the system.
Yeah.
I have a kid in the system.
I wouldn't say it's awful. No, I wouldn't say it's awful. It's different.
So awful is a bit extreme.
Yeah, it's a bit extreme, I think. First point, I definitely agree with regards to expat. I don't use the term very often. It slips out sometimes, but I regard myself as an immigrant. I don't really like the word expat. I think it's trying to sort of put a name on something which isn't right. But with regards to the education, both of my daughters have gone through Spanish education since they were born.
State education.
State education, yeah. No private schools. And yeah, we've had problems. We've actually got a problem now with the school. They're actually on their 7th teacher in 3 years.
What, excuse me? 7th teacher in 3 years.
Teacher in 3.2 years.
This is the primary or the
primary school?
Primary school. Okay.
So basically, this is my younger daughter. So that's has been an issue for us.
Was she in year 6?
She's in the 4th grade now.
4th grade.
So she in the 1st grade. I think she went through 2 teachers, 3 teachers in 2nd or 3rd grade, and then they've just changed teachers again.
So you're talking about teachers that are changing mid-term.
Yeah, I mean, basically the first year, I just can't remember all of them now. So
do they give a reason though?
Yeah, the first year, her actual teacher that was assigned to her class in the first year, I think she was actually off ill. She was off sick, and it was a long-term illness. So they had an interim teacher come along, a substitute teacher, if you like. She was there for a couple of months or so, and then she got ill, and then they got another one come in. So, I mean, it's just bad luck, really. I mean, there's not a lot you can do about it. But that was 3 teachers in the first year. Then we had an issue in another year where she got given a teacher who was about to retire. Knowing what had happened in the past, I mean, you'd expect them to sort of at least try and get 1 year through 1 year without having the same teacher. But we knew right from the beginning in September that this teacher was going to be retiring in February. So we knew we only had her for a few months, and in February they were going to have another new teacher. And then this year, what's happened is the head teacher of the school was retired. He's just announced his retirement last week or week before last. And because he's retired, the secretary from the school at the moment is now going to become the head teacher, or has become the head teacher now. Mm-hmm. And my daughter's teacher has now become the secretary. Oh, so now we've got to have another teacher to replace him. And the kids actually came out of school crying.
Really?
And some of them asking the parents, what have we done wrong? Why don't any of the teachers want to stay with us? Why doesn't anyone want to teach us? And they're feeling really bad about it. And a lot of it has been very bad luck, but I think it's been dealt with in a bad way. And we could have had a much better experience if they'd had a permanent teacher on them. At least through 2 of the years.
Yeah. So putting that to one side for a minute, the quality of the education, you happy with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general the quality of the education's fine. I've not had an issue with that, but I think one of the biggest issues is the way that what's happened with my daughter up till now. That's not an uncommon thing. It's the way that the teachers are placed in each class, how it's done. It's a very weird system in my eyes. And I'm not very happy with that. That's one thing I'm not too happy about.
Can you voice your opinion?
We're actually voicing our opinion now. We've actually all the parents have gotten together and they've said, enough is enough. And they've written it. We've already spoken to the school. They've already said that there's nothing really they can do about the situation. It's just unfortunate, and it is to a point. It is unfortunate, but but it's constantly unfortunate to our kids and not other classes in the school. We're like, well, why does it always happen to our class and not others? So they are voicing it, but
it's just bad luck, probably.
Yeah. What's your point of view on this? I mean, you've got your son in the school. And what's your experience?
He's only been going for a few years, so I don't really feel that I'm qualified to give an in-depth opinion on the topic. Things that I read. I read a lot about the education system, and there are, comparisons that they do, comparative reports that they do, and Spain always comes, Spain always does really bad in these reports,
Yeah.
And there was one recently that I read in the paper. There's this report called the PISA report. You know it?
No.
It's in all of the OECD countries. Again, they compare the standards.
Okay.
Like they do tests. So how the students perform in maths, how they perform in language, how they perform in different things. And the person that puts this report together recently, he was recently interviewed, and he said that the education laws in Spain are from the 19th century.
Well, this goes back to what I was saying. It's just the organisation of it and the laws that go with the education system here. I just think are dated, and they need to be addressed. And
he said that one of the problems is that there's not enough creative thinking in the system, and that the system's just based on memory. In the sense that do you know what I mean? They're not taught to solve problems. They're just taught to. This is his opinion. They're just taught to memorize the things rather than work out why they happen.
Okay, I think a lot of that depends on the school and the teachers, because I think you've got.
We're talking state schools.
Exactly.
We're not. See, now that's another point, that the education system here, it's very difficult to understand if you're not from Spain. You've got private schools. You've got another system which is called concertada.
Yep.
Which is a private school.
It's kind of semi-private, isn't it?
Well,
it's more private than it's state.
Well, and then you've got state schools or public schools, or I know in the UK public schools, a bit different concept, but state school, let's say. So it's a bit complex in that sense. A lot of people are trying to get their kids in, like this area that we live in here, there's only one private school, and there's only one concertada. Oh, that's my Siri's gone off, so I'll just get that out of the way. There's only one private school, and there's only one of these concertados, the semi-private school, let's say. All the rest are state schools. But if you go to some of the other areas in Madrid, there's lots of private schools, and especially the areas where people have higher incomes. Like if you go to Pozuelo, Majadahonda, there's lots of private schools in those areas. I think another thing that he mentions, or somebody mentioned in the comments here, John, was that perhaps the education systems, it's too politicized, and maybe parents have too much of a role in influencing the way things happen in the schools. Now, just talking about the school across the road, there's always seems to be a protest there from the Parents Association. They're always complaining about something.
Yeah, and
maybe parents are not allowing the teachers to teach. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I've worked in a state school and I've worked in a concertado. I did 2 years in the state school and 1 year in a concertado.
Here in Rivas?
No, 2 years in the state school was in Rivas, and the other one was in Alcalá de Rey.
Yeah.
Alcalá de Henares. I'm getting confused. Which was 1 year. My experience has been sort of in some ways it's the same experience with some of the teaching methods in the two schools. But I've got to admit, the teachers in the state school here in Rivas were absolutely fantastic, really good. In the school in Alcalá de Henares, I won't mention names.
Which was a concertado, you said,
the concertado,
right?
And it was Catholic school.
Okay, so religious-based education.
Religious-based education. It was all boys as well, which made a huge difference, I think, certainly for the way the children act and behave in class. I thought it was very different. My experience there was good. It was fine, but it wasn't as good as the state school, my experience there. I find my my way of teaching was limited in the Contentada.
But you we'll just go. So you were
Yeah.
a classroom assistant.
I was a teaching assistant.
So explain what the role of that exactly what you had to do.
Okay, so basically I taught in bilingual schools.
Yeah.
Okay, so the children were learning English, science.
But you weren't the main teacher.
No. The children were learning various subjects in English.
Okay, so science,
the social science and natural science, and then their English classes, the PE classes, they were all in English.
PE in English.
PE in English,
Okay.
yeah. So my job there was basically to assist the teacher. So
in what way?
well, I'd go to the class, depending on what the teacher wanted me to do. Each teacher's different, but they would have the class prepared. The teacher would prepare the class.
I'll just interrupt. So the teachers that were teaching social sciences in English, geography, etc., they were fluent in the topics, obviously, in their knowledge in English.
It's primary school.
In English.
So, in English.
So they knew all of the concepts, they knew all of the names.
They knew, I mean, they're bilingual, the teachers.
So they were...
No one's perfect. So obviously, the idea of the teaching assistant, native speaker,
is to
could
correct...
be American or British or whatever. We would go there. The idea of our job was basically to assist the teacher in teaching in English, whether it be accent, pronunciation, or content.
Okay.
And on top of that, help the teacher. So if the teacher was making any mistakes, I certainly tried not to do it in front of the students because it just undermines the teacher. But maybe I would mention it under breath or at the end of the class. Oh, you need to say it this way. And and they took it very well. It's not like they didn't feel bad for it. They were there to learn as well. It's to help. It's as if I went to speak Spanish and teach Spanish in England, and I had a Spanish native come and help me in the class. I would expect to try and learn things as well because no one can speak two languages absolutely perfectly unless they're extremely special people in my point of view. So basically, the experience all depended on the teacher. Some of the teachers wanted you to take more of an active role in the class and actually teach the class that they'd prepared, and they would assist you in helping with the children and stuff, so that you were talking more during the class and giving the students more access to accents and pronunciation. Other teachers would want to teach the class themselves, and you would basically assist the students, assist them. So it depended on the teacher really, but you were always in the classroom with the teacher. You never expected to do a class on your own. And then the other point of the job was the teacher would also organise classes where you would take out groups of children to do exercises in smaller groups, normally speaking exercises, where you go out and you basically get them speaking more English.
So this is all part of this bilingual education program that they have in the Madrid community and some other communities in Spain.
Yeah, it's all over Spain now. Yeah.
But not every school is obliged to follow this curriculum, right?
No, it's bilingual schools or non-bilingual. For example, my daughters go to a normal state school.
Okay, like as does mine.
Yeah, I didn't want them to go to bilingual because I thought, well, they're in my point of view on this side of things, they're Spanish. They were born here. They've got an English dad, so they're getting English from me. They speak pretty well in English, although I'm the only person who speaks to them in English. So I wanted them to learn the sciences and everything else in Spanish because they live in Spain. It seemed a logical thing to me, and without putting extra pressure on them to learn it in a different language.
All right, good. Yeah, so I'm sure we'll talk more about education over the next few podcasts. So, but we'll leave it there for today. But just going back to that original point, awful, probably too strong of an adjective. Okay, all right, a bit too strong. All right, now another comment here from Coffer Martin. Now, Coffer Martin, I get the impression that he's from Australia, but I think his parents were Spanish. So he's in the opposite situation to us in some ways. Yeah. He wants to know if I think people are happier in Spain or in Australia, or if Spanish are happier than Australians, or vice versa. and whether I had trouble driving on the opposite side of the road when I first came to Spain. In Spain, we drive on the right. Of course, in Australia, we drive on the left. Now, I'll answer the easy one here first. It wasn't difficult for me to change to drive on the opposite side of the road. Was it for you?
Nah, not at all.
No.
I found it really easy.
It's just maybe a couple of days to get used to it, but I don't think there was anything out of the ordinary here. I had to sit my driver's test again in Spain here, so I had to go through the system and learn how to drive again according to Spanish standards, so that was also interesting. But it was just getting used to using the opposite hand to change gears, basically. I mean, everything on the floor is the same.
I think it was. The actual car itself was just dead easy to drive. You get used to having the gear stick on the right hand side straight away. I think the most difficult thing was probably, and it took a sort of 2 or 3 days to get used to, was obviously when you get to a roundabout.
Do you remember which way to turn? Yeah,
going the opposite way around the roundabout and things like that. And remembering which way to look first when you get to junctions.
Instead of looking to instead of looking to your right, looking to your left.
The traffic lights.
Traffic lights different here.
Yeah, I mean, the traffic lights here they've got different types of traffic lights. You've got ones that are amber, they're flashing amber. And then when they're going to change to red, the amber stops flashing, it stays amber, and then it turns red. Yeah. And if you go through the traffic light as it's changing from flashing amber to fixed amber, you'll actually get fined.
Oh, yeah, well,
and it was like, it didn't make an awful lot of sense. That annoyed me. Yeah.
If there was a camera there.
If there was a camera, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. But you get used to these things. Yeah. It's more difficult for me when I go back to Australia and drive there. It takes me a couple of days to get used to that, to the system there as well. But when I come back here, normally there's no problem. And the question about whether people are happier, well, I can't answer that question. Happiness is a very subjective thing. Are people in Australia happy? Well, the ones that I speak to seem to be happy. People that I speak to here seem to be happy as well. The only difference I would say that if opportunity is part of your level of happiness, then it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes, the lack of opportunity here. Not necessarily for me personally, but for people that I have spoken to. And I say this because I have met people Spanish people in the UK and Spanish people in Australia, and there seems to be a thing here that if you're not 100% Spanish, it's more difficult for you to break into the system. I don't know. Whereas I think that if you're a good professional and you go to the UK or Australia, they'll take you on your professional skills rather than whether you're from there or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas here, I work in a lot of companies teach English, and I don't see any foreign people working in these companies. There's no integration. There's lots of South American people here, but very rarely do you see South American people working in companies. I don't know whether that's because of I'm talking about the big companies.
Yeah.
And I think it's just harder to break in, and that there's not a lot of opportunities because when there is a 25% unemployment rate like there was, or a 15% rate like there is now, you don't have those opportunities. Yeah. It's not easy to find other jobs as well. And if that's one of the things, if you get stuck in your job and you're not happy and you can't change, that might influence your happiness in some way.
Yeah. I don't know if I've had the same experience with regards to that as you actually. For example, what my wife's company where my wife works is a big multinational. Might be different maybe because it's a multinational, but they've got people from all over the world working there. Wherein I worked at the chain of gyms, we had a lot of South Americans. We had quite a few Argentinians there teaching paddle.
Because they're expert paddle.
Yeah, exactly. So we did actually have a lot of different nationalities in the company. So I mean, maybe I've had a slightly different experience on that side of things. But I think there's a level of happiness. I think it's kind of hard to measure. If I was comparing the UK to Spain, I would say there's one big difference. The grass is greener concept. in England, a lot of people seem to think that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, and they're looking at the great weather in Spain, and they sort of like think that life's better somewhere else. So they sort of like their happiness is kind of subdued because they don't think they're as happy as they could be if they were somewhere else. Whereas I think Spain is completely the reverse. It's like, no, we've got the greenest grass. Yeah, I'm happy here. I don't think I'd be happy in the UK because the weather's awful. Yeah. That's the first thing that people say to me. It's always raining in England. It's always cold. I couldn't live there. I wouldn't be happy. And I think that's probably a big thing for Spanish people, the whole sunlight and the weather. If they don't get that wherever they move to, it's an issue.
Yeah, so that's not an issue in Australia because the sun shines fairly often down there.
Yeah, I also think a lot of these, your perception of happiness when you're comparing Spain to another country, I think a lot of it depends on where you're comparing it. If you compare a big city like Madrid, I would say that a lot of people are probably not quite as happy here in Madrid as they are on the coast of Spain. I think a lot of people in the villages on the coast of Spain, they seem to be a lot happier and friendlier than they are in the big cities. So I think that's pretty much the same anywhere you go.
It could be. It could be. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, just going back to the topic, I mean, I don't really know whether Spanish people in general are happier than Australians. I do know, however, John, according to this article that I saw today, that Spanish life expectancy is going to be the number one by 2040. Let me just read this here. I've got it here. So the longest life expectancy in the world by 2040. And there was an article in the Times apparently that said, why do Spaniards live longer if they smoke and drink? And apparently, according to this, it's because they have sex more often and the tapas are good. Now, I don't know whether that is the reason, but they go through 7 or 8 reasons here. Now, one of the first thing they say is that Spanish people walk a lot. So they're getting, I can see by the look on your face there, that maybe you don't agree with that. All right, good. So I call it here el paseo, the walk, or el paseo. So they don't go as much. They don't go as often to the gym, but they walk more. Okay. So I don't know. That could be one of the reasons. Now the famous paseo. I do notice here that on an afternoon where the weather's quite good, there are a lot of people walking. Around the place. But apparently that's one of the reasons, according to this, why people live longer. I don't know. Okay. Do you walk a lot? When you're not taking out the dog?
Yeah, as I was about to say, when I'm not taking out the dog, the transport system in Rivas is pretty poor. Really, if you compare it to a lot of other places. So you have to take the car everywhere. It's just a pain in the neck. So no, I don't walk as much as I would do in the UK. I would walk a lot more. A lot more. I'd walk down the town. I'd walk to go shopping. I'd walk down the river. I'd have just a nice little walk down the river. I think a lot of that also depends on the weather. I would be more likely to walk in England than I would here.
If the weather was better. Okay.
Well, no, not actually the opposite way around. I'd be more likely to walk out in the rain in the UK
than you would here.
Than I would here, because I've got somewhere to go out in the rain. Whereas here, I'd have to go by public transport or drive. And the other thing is, here in the middle of the summer, the last thing you want to do is go out for a walk. It's so hot.
In the middle of the day.
Mad
dogs, John. Mad dogs.
Yeah, I don't think I'd agree with that. I think with the amount of dog owners as well in the UK, I would say a lot of people go out for walks a lot in the UK. And my parents walk a fair bit.
Yeah. So you don't think that's one of the reasons?
No, maybe they're comparing cities. Maybe again.
I don't know. It just says here that there's now a term here called el paseo, which has become a noun.
Okay.
Mediterranean diet.
Yeah, that's different colour fish.
All right, good. So we're starting to get into the real details here. So the Mediterranean diet: fish, fruit and veg, nuts, pulses, olive oil. Spanish love their lentejas.
Yep.
They love their fabadas.
Yep.
I'll be honest, I hadn't eaten a lot of lentils before I came to Spain.
No, same here. That's one thing I didn't really eat an awful lot of. I think they've got it a lot in their diet here, and I didn't really eat an awful lot of lentils.
And fish as well. Spain is a huge fish-consuming country.
Yep.
You only have to go to a supermarket to realise that, how many varieties of fish. And comparing Australia, we don't eat fish. We have inherited the British diet, which is pork, lamb, beef, and chicken.
Yep.
And fish is something that maybe you eat at Easter time or something like that. More and more people are eating fish. I mean, I'm generalising here again, but for a country that's surrounded by water, like the UK, we don't consume a lot of fish.
I think a lot of fish is consumed on the coast of the UK.
Is it?
But it tends to be the same.
Out of fish and chips? Or?
Well, it tends to be the same fish. So we eat a lot of cod, hake,
kippers.
plaice. Yeah, mackerel, things like that. It tends to be the same sort of fish, so you certainly don't get anywhere near as big a variety.
But it's not involved in the day-to-day as much as it is here, do you think?
It's not eaten as much. No. But we also have a limited, I would say we have more of a limited variety of fish in the waters around the UK compared to Spain. So, yeah, I think it's something that it's just how the country's evolved through the years and the types of meals that are cooked every day.
Yeah.
We've got more access to meat than we have fish, probably.
Yeah, likewise in Australia. Siestas is the third point here, the famous siesta. A lot of people get angry here when you mention the siesta. They say, we never have a siesta. That's a lie. Spain is not a country where people have a siesta. Now, I love to have a siesta. If I can have a siesta, if I can have one every day for 26 minutes, as they mention here, 26 minutes of shut-eye is recommended by the Spanish Society of Doctors. Now, if I can get 10, 15, 20 minutes, my day does improve.
Really? Oh, mine's the opposite. I hate it. Oh, no.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't like sleeping in the middle of the day.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't like it. It's personal choice. But I like to get up early in the morning, so I'll get up at 5:45, and by 3 I'm more or less cooked.
Yeah.
So I need to have a little bit of a siesta. On the weekends, it's longer. The weekend siesta it's because of a big lunch and. You've had a couple of beers and a glass of wine or whatever. So it
tends to happen in the UK as well, though.
Yeah, well, it happens everywhere. Yeah. But, the siesta, according to who you speak to, only 18% of people here recognise that they take a siesta or admit to taking a siesta. But I would agree. It says that it keeps your heart healthy and your mood healthy as well. Keep it short and sweet, which is what they recommend. Yeah. Don't have like a 2 or 3 hour siesta. But I remember when my son first started school, it was part of the day for the kids there.
Yeah, it's still part of the day for the younger kids. They still have a siesta in the middle of the day up until they start primary school.
That's right.
But I don't think it's really a big part of Spanish lifestyle now for
not
adults.
In Madrid, at least.
Certainly not in Madrid. No. And people do get cross when when people sort of mention that. It's a very stereotypical thing to say about the Spanish.
They also have a word for it, which has become quite well known. The siesta. Do you know what I mean?
Which one?
Well, the word siesta.
Yeah.
I mean, we even use.
Oh, right. Yeah, we use it in the UK as well.
That's it. Have a siesta.
A little siesta. Yeah.
That's right. So I mean, it is one of those things that people do associate with Spain, but. Yeah, I do agree. People get a little bit touchy when you do mention it. Longer working day is apparently one of the reasons why Spanish live longer. They work longer hours, but not very stressed hours. So they sort of get to work, they have a coffee, they have a chat, they sit down, maybe they go to the toilet, they get back up, have another coffee, have another chat, sit down. But they're there until 8 o'clock in the afternoon. According to this I'm just quoting what I'm reading here.
Actually, that's very true to my experience.
Okay. So they're working longer, but they're not stressed at work, which is one of the keys, they say here.
Yeah, I think that depends on the job. I mean, I think some people get stressed at the job because of those habits of people going out for a coffee, because you try and get in touch with people, you can't get in touch with the person you want to because they've gone to have a coffee or they've gone to have a cigarette or that actually stressed a lot of people out in my old job when I was working there. But I can't see how that can be really beneficial. I actually feel most of the Spanish really dislike those working hours. You get to work at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I've got to admit, half the people in the office where the gyms where I used to work, they were already having breakfast at 10, and that was half an hour. It wasn't 10 minutes; it was half an hour of breakfast with coffee and
that's a morning
croissant.
tea.
Yeah, but then you've got lunchtime, and all of a sudden they'd have about an hour and a half, 2 hours for lunch. Well, most of them didn't really want an hour and a half or 2 hours for lunch. It's still the siesta time is still sort of
it's incorporated
into the Spanish working hours, and it's not
for some people. That's right. Yeah,
it's not really necessary now, and people don't use it for siestas, so they end up with 2 hours for lunch, and they'd rather get home earlier. Most of them, I think.
I would say that is the case.
Yeah.
The next one here, we'll just move through these last few points here quickly because we're running out of time. Spanish people have more and better sex. According to a survey of 15,000 women, Spanish men are the best lovers.
Okay.
I can't comment on that.
I can't comment on that.
But they say that they have sex more on average than other people. And I don't know whether that's true or not. Obviously, speaking from experience here, I don't know whether it is or not. The Spanish vocabulary is more upbeat. Okay, they have more positive words in their vocabulary on a daily basis, like love and laughter, and that apparently boosts people's moods. Okay, so whereas in English there's more negative words like sad and crying. That's just what they say here. Okay,
so I don't know. Rubbish, but anyway, yeah, okay.
But that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all.
and the last one here is tapas in the evening. Tapas in the evening, that could also be related because they say here that going to have some tapas and a glass of wine or two, maybe that's related to the sex part as well there, John, maybe.
Yeah.
A few glasses of wine in the evening. But a lighter dinner.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. A lot of Spanish people have a lighter dinner. They have a heavy lunch, lighter dinner. So that obviously helps.
Health benefits.
Yeah, it helps a lot with the benefits. But at the same time, I find it very difficult, or I certainly have done in the past, found it very difficult with regards to the eating habits here, because I stick to my normal breakfast because I don't like the pastries and the chocolate in the morning. It just doesn't
cereal in the morning.
I like cereal or a bit of porridge, some shreddies. That's my thing for the morning. But the lunchtime, I would be quite happy to have a sandwich at lunchtime and have an earlier dinner.
Not a 3-course.
But a 3-course meal in the middle of the day, you feel tired afterwards. But it's the evening meal for me. For me, it's just too late.
Yeah.
I can't go to sleep after eating so much in the evening.
Especially when you're having dinner at 10.
Yeah. But it's very hard to have a light dinner in the evening when you've had a lunch at 2 o'clock.
Yeah,
and your dinner's not until 9 o'clock in the evening. I find it very hard to have a light dinner in the evening. So I found it very difficult. But maybe it's something you have to grow up experiencing as a kid to be able to carry on. Because I certainly haven't been able to adapt.
I don't know
too well with that.
But that's it. There, the Spanish are going to be the people that live the longest by 2040. All right, now I have to wrap it up. We're running out of time. The cameras are about to turn off. So we'll just wrap it up. So questions or comments, leave them in the section below if you have one. Give your opinion on why you think Spaniards live longer than everyone else in the world. Leave it in the section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Remember, we are available on all of the major podcasting platforms nowadays. John, I'll say thank you again for your participation.
No problems. See you soon.
See you in the next one. And we'll wrap it up. So hasta luego.